Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to The Link. This is your favorite prevention training specialist, Dwayne Savid, today. I'm just playing, I'm playing. But welcome, y'all. Welcome to The Link in collaboration between APLA Health and Pyro Media Network, funded by the CDC. Hold on, let me adjust my camera really quick. They give us the monies so we can bring it to you every Tuesday, honeys. Okay?
She brings it to you every day.
I have here with me Kai and Daniel.
What's going on, everybody? It's your favorite prevention training specialist for real from Swab and Chill. What's going on?
And hi, everybody. This is Kai Smith, program coordinator for our CDC-funded program, Healthy Him, and I oversee Daniel and Swab and Chill program. Hey. Oh, hey. There it is.
So, I'm moderating today, y'all, and this is only my second time doing this. So
we made him take over today.
Okay,
what are we doing now?
They said take the wheel or we're gonna crash. Nah, just playing. They're being very helpful. But today's segment is going to be about, in honor of actually, National Coming Out Day, which is next Monday, but also almost simultaneously, but the day before is World Mental Health Day as well. So we'll be talking about that, about coming out and, the effects that it can have on your mental health. But before we get into that, let's get into what's popping, y'all.
What's popping?
Where the thing is?
What's I was like, where
Y'all,
is it?
Y'all is so funny because y'all be waiting on these graphics like you can't still come up with the segment.
No.
You can still lead into the segment.
I know what's happening.
Know that the graphic is coming, but you just move forward. Y'all are hilarious. Because y'all both do that, and I think it is the cutest. They be like, okay, I can't go on until I see the graphic.
Okay, wait a minute.
The show flow.
They can still hear you.
So what's popping with y'all? There's been a lot going on in the social media streets. For me, I know it definitely affected me. Instagram, Facebook,
oh, the Instagram being down. That's right. Everyone kind of realized that, oh, shoot, I have to have a personality without Instagram.
Global outrage that affected Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. In addition to it, I think a few other streaming services that people use were also affected. But I mean, it was a huge thing because, it wasn't just cities. It was a global thing. People around the world could not, get on social media. And for people who, like who are on social media and depend on social media for some type of money,
okay.
That was a day where they couldn't work.
That is true.
So I mean, it was a big thing.
Okay, he's getting sued right now and lost apparently around 6 million. It's
6 billion.
It's 6 billion. Excuse me, you're right. Because it bounces in between articles, y'all. There's 5.9. There's 6 billion. There's 6.2. I think it's going up, honestly. Because
no one trusts it. Because Facebook, there's a whistleblower. And I can't remember her name right now, but she's actually testifying, I think today, in front of Congress about kind of some of the misdealings that Facebook has done in the past and allowing negative information, especially around the election, the misinformation and COVID stuff. So yeah, Facebook is losing a lot of money. I mean, it is a lot. $6 billion is a lot of money, but when you look at how much he's worth, that 121 point something billion dollars, so now he's not in the top 5. He's the number 6 richest man in the world. So
let me have $100,000.
I mean, I'm saying for a normal person.
Let me have $100,000. That's all I need is $100,000 to make it happen.
But I guarantee Mr. Mark Zuckerberg is not missing that money.
Oh no, not at all, not at all. And her name is Frances Haugen. Haugen. Is it Haugen?
I don't know.
Haugen.
Yeah, Hogan. We'll go with Hogan, like Hulk Hogan.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, also another thing, if you're here in California, you might have been noticing we've got some we have some new vaccine mandates, updates, things like that. So the city of LA has now mandated, and I believe also all of California has mandated, all school children must now be vaccinated to attend school. And honestly, great, right? You already need 10 vaccinations to get into school. So adding COVID, I think for me sounds like the most natural kind of choice of action, especially now that we do have more vaccines coming up for younger people. Still kind of waiting to see if the FDA approves everything. But at least for high schoolers, 16 and up, and then even I believe for the 11 and up right now, the vaccine has been approved. So I think this is a great step. Also, there was a city ordinance for all city workers to be vaccinated, and the LA City Police Department is suing over the mandatory vaccination. So that, I know for me, I'm actually really, really upset about that the police officers are not willing to get vaccinated. So police makes.
Can we just fire them like we're firing the teachers and the nurses and the other people that are necessary, because they're very unnecessary.
Right, and then what's funny too is a lot of them are looking for religious or kind of other reasons to do it. So LA City Police Department makes up 33% of all city workers, and they are 50% of all the exemptions for religious purposes for why they can't get the COVID vaccine. There's also been a lot of instances where people have been complaining that the police have not been wearing masks when they're out in public, and I can actually attest to that. I've been seeing a couple police officers like, "Hey, aren't you supposed to be wearing a mask?" And I get told to worry about my own business, and then I just keep on walking. But so what do y'all think about the police not wanting to wear masks, especially because they tend to be in the communities that are hit hardest with COVID?
I really don't care, to be honest. And I say it this way, there are so many other things that need to happen when it comes to our police system. Number one, stop killing Black folks.
Not wearing a mask, they're gonna kill Black folks because they're gonna get people.
But I'm saying, it doesn't shock me that the institution of policedom is not doing something that is required of the public that they are supposed to be serving and protecting. It doesn't shock me. And I think that to pinpoint in on not wearing a mask at this point, with all that we've seen with the police department, specifically LAPD, it's just remedial to me. There are other issues that I want the police department to be held accountable to, and for. Yes, should they be wearing masks? Absolutely. You lead by example. You are an authoritative figure in a community. Yes, you should be wearing a mask, but there are so many other things that they should be doing that they're not doing that they need to be held accountable for. So wearing a mask or not wearing a mask is not necessarily at the top of my priority list for them.
Yeah. I get that. I know for me, my issue is because it is such a bare kind of minimum to ask someone to wear a mask, especially when they're out in public. And it's a law. It's a mandate. It's a kind of a rule. So the people who uphold the law are just, it's not even kind of like the shaded, I was in danger, blah, blah, blah. They're just straight up saying, nah.
It's like texting and driving. They tell us not to text and drive. They got a whole goddamn computer.
Laptop.
You know what I'm saying? And people can say, oh, well, they're trained to do X, Y, and Z. I don't care. If you're telling the community not to text and drive, there should be no reason why you have a whole computer, or worse yet, computer aside, cops that actually drive and text on their phone. Because I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
I've absolutely seen it. And it's really?
Me as I pull my phone down.
Like I said, it doesn't shock me. Is it annoying? Yes. Is it hypocritical? Absolutely. But shocking, upsetting? No.
I just think they should be held to the same standard that everybody else is being held to. So if people are losing their jobs because they don't want to get the vaccine, because they don't want to wear their mask, because they don't want to abide by the rules that the government that they work for is saying that we need to do, then they need to go. I mean, I already think half of them need to go. We really just need to just cut it. Just cut it. Shut the whole thing down.
What I will say, not a huge reform fix or a huge kind of win, but it's a baby step, is that California now has new laws for police officers where if they have any kind of negative kind of thing on their record, used to be California, you could just leave your police department, you could have gotten fired for harassment or workplace violence, just transfer somewhere else. Now that follows you, so it's a step in that's one. But we
love doing that performative stuff.
I will say this, we've talked about police reform here on the show before. And my personal opinion, there definitely needs to be a reconstructive overhaul as it pertains to the police
Absolutely.
department. However, I don't fall into the category of people that believe that we don't need a police department or we don't need some type of law enforcement entity, because we've seen in communities that don't have that how wild that can get, and at some point you fall into this, survival of the fittest type of thing. What happened? I forget the city that it happened in, where they the citizens took over that 6-block radius in Washington, and it was like you had citizens who had guns, who were there to police the area, and excuse my language, shit went crazy because there was no one there to really enact what needed to be for the order of things. So I always feel like there needs to be a structure to create order. Otherwise, chaos is just going to run rampant.
And I definitely agree, Daniel. And I just want to clarify.
It's just the how.
Because it was just, when I say I think we need to shut the whole thing down, I really mean for a limited time. Just so that we can restructure, reshape how the process is and things. And honestly,
or we can just enact the purge. How about we do that? However, we just enact the purge for one day, one night only, and see who lives.
I don't like that because I have no survival.
I'm leaving.
I don't have.
Where are they not purging? That's where I'm gonna go.
I said, look, I don't have survival instincts, so I don't know about that.
For me, I think, because y'all know how I'm basically almost an anarchist. I'm burn the system down. Let's start all over. I think the funding should go away, and I think we should put it in more social services. Right?
Exactly.
We say crime happens in areas where they need support. And I think if we put more money in supportive services, more mental health, more resources, better education, food, so that we didn't have things like food deserts, we didn't have things just trying to get around and redlining, things like that naturally disimpoverish people. I don't think we would have such a need to be overly policed, right? We see other countries have police who are doing significantly less, right? Our police budget here, I believe even in LA, is bigger than some countries. So entire countries. So we have another instance of, but I mean, that's also an American thing, right? We're going broke and we might be shutting down on October 18th, but we had enough money to send over $100 million to Israel so that they could do some military stuff with it.
Now, how does that work?
But that's a whole different topic, and that's going to be so long, and I'm going to get myself worked up.
No, they need to pay
but yeah,
bills
so
if they can send money to
I say for everyone out there, get your kids vaccinated. If you are a city service worker, please, please, please get vaccinated. It's your safety and for everyone else who you're working with. And don't take a religious, exemption when we know you don't need a religious exemption. Don't do that. Don't bring God into it. Just own it with your chest that you don't want to do it.
Well, in other news outside of police and vaccinations, so George Floyd's new statue that was put up in his honor in New York City has been vandalized. And obviously, some people are outraged. Some people are not. What are your thoughts?
So I'm not outraged per se. I just think it's disrespectful. I feel like, is it not bad enough that the man already lost his life and, it was put on display visually for everyone to see? Not only that, the video was a constant, trigger on social media over and over again. It actually triggered the whole I feel like it triggered the whole Black Lives Matter movement as a whole, on top of the other killings that were being made during that time. So I just think to throw salt in the wound is kind of just unnecessary.
For me, it was going to happen. I think as people of color, Black people, I don't think that would have been something that we would have even thought about. But obviously there are people who are against it. We know the kind of people that are going to do it. And I don't think this will be the last time it happens. Because, we still have people who are upset about us taking down statues of slaveholders. So, of course, they're not going to care about a statue of a man whose life was taken from him by, people they look up to. So, surprised? No. Just upset about the entire situation. There shouldn't be a statue of George Floyd because he should still be alive. So, it's kind of one of those whole catch-22s. It's going to happen. And it is sad. I hope that whoever out there was the one responsible for it, do better.
Well, they got his behind on camera.
Oh, so. Did they? Great.
Oh, yes.
They're
going to catch him.
You.
Somebody knows those search through shorts.
Maybe.
Not to mention that his whole skateboard full of stickers was all in the video. So
Oh wow. Do you
I'm
think?
sure.
Do you think someone was just vandalizing the statue to vandalize a statue? Or do
It
you
was
think-
a whole like can of paint though.
Like, I feel, in certain instances, you can never really gauge how dumb people are going to be.
Mhm.
And for what reasons? Could it be that he's a racist and he just feels like this is disrespectful to put yeah, he absolutely could. Could he have been some idiot that just felt like, oh, I want to vandalize something and it just so happened to be the George Floyd statue? Yes, that's a possibility. I really don't care what the reason for it is. I do think that it's disgusting. I do think that for George Floyd specifically, because we as a country first and then as the world sat in our home during the whole year quarantine and watched this happen live. And for anyone who saw that video, whether live or the replay, I don't know how disconnected you have to be not to feel horror, not to feel remorse, not to feel just anger and pain and anguish at the sight of that. And so to then have anyone, vandalize a statue of this man's memory and of a movement in this country, it's just dumb. I don't know if I even have the words to express what it is. But as you said, is it shocking? Are we surprised? No. Is it probably going to happen a few more times? Unfortunately, probably.
Well, use better paint next time.
Don't use better paint. Let it wash off.
Gosh, no. I'm just saying, like, give us a color. Give us a
Not
tint.
give us a color
beat his
as if the
face
color
or
story is
something. Get
important.
creative about it if you're gonna do it.
Beat his face. I can't. On lighter notes, we only have a little bit of time left. Any new music that everyone's listening to? I have new music that I've been listening to nonstop.
Well,
but that's just
run
me.
it down, Kai. What's
Oh.
going on?
So one of my favorite, Ariana Grande's my favorite white woman of color.
What?
That made so
No,
much sense to me.
absolutely. We're not doing that. We
But
are
it
not
makes
doing
sense.
that. We're not doing
and
that.
Does
this is
it
a
not make
Anyway.
We're
sense?
not doing that.
JoJo released a new album, and I think it was so great. And I'm so excited to see her, especially because she's one of those people. We've been seeing a lot of talk about like the Free Britney movement, about the conservatorship, about kind of industries really doing artists dirty. And we've all heard the conversation about Miss Taylor Swift herself. Well, JoJo kind of dealt with it beforehand, and as she was releasing this new album, those old albums that she couldn't get paid off of and couldn't release because her Blackground, was it Black? It's Blackground. Aaliyah's record company didn't release her albums until recently. So now she's competing against herself for the album she re-recorded. So I'm really excited for this new album for her, and I love it. If you are a person who likes to feel good, to talk about your toxic relationships and hear like a good singer, I say go ahead and listen to JoJo's new EP because it's great. It's great.
JoJo definitely has vocals. New artists, artists that I'm listening to right now that I'm really into. Jeremy Pope has a single called "Worth a Million" that I'm really, really into right now. Christian Lear is an artist. He is amazing. He has a really grown EP called "Offline 2" that I absolutely recommend. And then Sean Milley, who is an up-and-coming singer-songwriter who is also fine as hell. I'll actually be
Any relation to Flo Milli?
not that I know of, but I'll have it on my own show later this week. And he has an EP out that's absolutely amazing as well. But he has a single called "Love Me," and that was a song that I heard that made me just fall in love with him. So I'll actually be interviewing him on Thursday on my show. So I'm really excited about that.
Nao has a new album too.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
I've been calling her now.
Now?
Mhm.
I used to say Nao. Nao. She has a song, God is a woman, then I worship him every Sunday. And I was like, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I didn't sing very well.
Well, for me, I've been listening to, this wonderful young non-binary queer artist by the name of James Barmore. He released the EP earlier this month. Well, actually, it's his 1 month anniversary. It's called Lavender. It's about an 8-track piece of art, and it's beautiful. It goes into very healing, self-revelation, and then it gets real like grown and sexy, like ooh, like
Love that.
turn the red lights on.
Oh, come on, red light.
Yes. And then I've also been listening to a single. It's not a full project, but it is called Poke It Out by Wale and J. Cole. It is they use a sample from Vibrant Thing.
Mhm.
It's amazing.
Come on, music.
So good. But yes, so that was it for what's poppin', and let's get right on into the main topic, which is coming out.
I want the world to know.
Got
to let it show.
I'm coming.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh,
We couldn't play the music because copyright. But imagine that was playing over everything.
Right, give us some auto tune,
Come on.
and we'll.
I was like, Daniel doesn't need auto tune, but I will definitely take an auto tune.
You know.
Come on with that. Yes. Do it again.
No, oh, I'm so embarrassed by myself.
You gave me Mariah.
Right, that's what I was saying. Like, give us Mariah.
So anyway, coming out, everyone.
So what was coming out like for you guys? I know for me, the first time it was cool, and then the second time it was a little interesting. I won't say like traumatic. It was just like very, I would say extra.
Well, I don't understand what you mean. What do you mean the first and second time?
Okay, so the first time, I did the whole bisexual thing, and
got it.
even then, like I'm not necessarily opposed to vagina, okay? It's more like a 60-40 thing. If you catch me, you catch me. If you're up for it, I'm down. But so that was the first time. And when I entered that, it was more so like, yeah, I'm bisexual. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I can still get a grandkid? Great. All right. But then
all I care about, like, you're not raising this child.
Right. You just want to hold it and then, like, send it back. Right?
Oh my gosh.
And then the second time it was a little bit more just extra. It was more so like, I don't know, I gotta tell this story without putting too much of my business out there. If that makes sense.
Share what you feel comfortable.
So basically, my neighbor at the time wanted to like offer me something that my mom didn't appreciate for my birthday. It wasn't a sexual favor or anything like that. It was just something that she didn't feel like I should have. And so
it was poppers.
I'm actually not a fan. Like the smell kind of like freaks me out a little bit. It makes me nervous.
Was it a toy? Was it heels? Was it a dress?
No, it was none of
You
the
don't have to say.
things.
You don't have to say.
It was.
Us being like, you don't have to say.
I'm
But
just
was
saying,
it this,
you bring it up on camera and you try to like navigate in this secrecy. The viewers are gonna be sitting down on pissed.
Okay.
Because they're like, what is he talking
You know
about?
what? Find me at Dwayne Sevier on all social networks, and you know what? We can have that conversation in the DMs.
In the DM.
So basically, then she offered it to me in front of my mom, and then she asked my mom, and my mom was like, "Well, ask him." And I was like, "Girl, why are you asking me? You know I'm gonna say yeah. Like, what is you talking about?" So then I said, "Yes, I can have it." Then she flipped her wig, made me give back the gift, cursed the neighbor out, and then proceeded to be like, "Is there something you need to tell me? Like, we didn't already have the conversation." So then we had the conversation again, and it was just an emotional wreck for her. I was fine. I was just looking at her like, wow, a Grammy.
I have.
The award goes to.
When we move on, I want to bring actually that up, the idea of getting re-asked by family members. But for me, my coming out was I wrote a letter. I was a senior in high school. I was a week from graduating and a week from turning 18. I had been sneaking out of my house almost every night for a couple months to go see a boy.
I know that's right.
She was
late night.
She was so tired. But I finally said, you know what? It's getting to the point where I had started telling a couple really close friends and one person who knew. Their parent worked with my dad at the hospital. So I was like, okay, there's a chance now at this point, like maybe something comes up in conversation, as if they talk about me ever at his job, probably not. But so I wrote a letter. I went to school the night before. So picture this, 17-year-old guy in Sicily, 1921. No, the year is 2009. I'm sitting there in the family computer room typing up this letter about how I just need to be true to myself, and I know that he might not agree because I just came out to my dad, so that was the only parent that I had to come out to. And so I finished the letter. It was like 3 pages. Didn't get that full 4-page like Aaliyah said, but I tried.
Double space.
Well, she was also writing to a man.
She
So
I mean, that's true. Yeah. I mean, I enclosed it with the kiss, right?
Right. Yes.
But so then I wrote the
Little
letter,
scent.
put it on his wallet, went to school. All day at school, I was expecting phone call, text, something. Nothing happened. And then got home, and my dad didn't go to work, and had this conversation with me. He was like, "Is there something you want to talk about?" And me being a little asshole at that point in my life was like, "No, I don't think there's anything I need to tell you." Because I sent him a letter. I told him.
Right, like I wrote the letter. Like
So then his next question.
right.
It's in there.
So then his next question was, "Well, do you pitch or do you catch?" And
that's always the question,
Right.
isn't it? Like,
And
why
so-
does that matter?
so, but ultimately, I didn't answer the question. Him and I had a really rough, I would say, like 2 or 3 months. And luckily, I think I was in that point in my life where I was about to go to college. I wasn't really relying on my father in college for like financial things, so he didn't really have much to hold over me. He's like, "I'm not going to pay your insurance anymore for your car," and I'm like, "Okay, well, I don't have to drive a car at college." But we kind of worked through it. I will say it took my dad a couple years to kind of get to that process where he felt safe and comfortable. But that's it. So my coming out I had an easy coming out. I will say I was definitely very, very blessed in my coming out story. So that's me.
I don't have necessarily a coming out story because I was never able to hide in any type of notion of masculinity growing up. So people always assumed because I was a feminine young child that I would always be gay. So there was always the notion or the idea that Daniel's gay. He was gay as a kid. He just don't know it yet. That that sort of thing. Which is why I hate when people say that about children today, because it's like, let kids be kids. But my mother, I don't know. Like, I don't have a coming out story. There was never a moment where I had to tell my mom or my dad, like, "Hey guys, I'm gay," and it was this huge shock. I literally just left. I was kicked out of my house because I got caught in my room with a boy.
Ooh,
So she was breaking rules.
I know that's right. She was.
And my parents kicked me out, and I was living in a motel at 19. I had a job. I was working at Farmers Insurance at the time, and I guess that was my coming out. Where it was the first time in my mother's life where she was confronted by the fact that she had a gay son. Like, when I went to school in my personal life, like, my friends knew I was gay. Like, I never had to have that conversation. But that one night, she came knocking on my door.
Okay, because this is what I want to do.
And she opened the door. Well, first of all, she knocked on the door, tried to open the door, and the door was locked.
Okay, I know that's right. Said lock.
And I rushed to get up, and I opened the door, and I had this huge hickey on my neck.
Ooh,
And she looked at this man, and she said, "You need to get out of my house, and don't you ever come back." And so he runs out, and she just looks at me with this disappointed look on her face, and she was like, "I'm not going to tell your dad." Now, mind you, my dad was awake when the dude came over.
He's just a friend now.
He went to bed. My mother woke up, and like, there was no conversation like, "Oh, Daniel has company." But he was awake on the couch when the dude came over. And so she was like, "I'm not going to tell your dad what happened, this, that, and the other." And literally, like, maybe not even a week, I came home, and there was a letter on my bed that said, "You're young, you have your life, we're old. And if that's what you want to be, then you can be that out in the streets." And as soon as I finished reading the letter, she came walking through the door, and I said, "Well, when do you want me out?" She said, "Now." And in about 30 minutes, I grabbed what I could, put it in 6 trash bags, and she drove me to a motel off of Manchester and Central. And
the whole strong.
I stayed there for about maybe a month and a half before a friend of mine called me. I told him what was going on because he asked, and he was like, "Yeah, that's not going to happen." And so he was like, "You're going to come stay with me." I was 18 or 19 at the time. And that was that. And so, I mean, I never I never had that story to necessarily tell. It was just like, this is who I am, and people kind of found out in different ways. I will say that I became unapologetically gay, where it was not even a question to anyone in my life or whatever, probably about 2 or 3 years ago. You know, when I really just got comfortable with my femininity, got comfortable with my presentation, got comfortable with myself, and I went through this journey of like, what am I willing to lose, or who am I willing to lose to be my most authentic self? Because anything else just felt like a lie. And that's not to say that I didn't, date women, have sex with women. Like I've done all of that. But that was the question at the time. You know, I was probably about, I'm 36 now. I was probably like 33, 34, early 30s. And that was the question. What are you willing to lose to be who you are? And the answer for that for me was any and everything. I'm willing to lose any and everybody in my life to be the most authentic version of myself. And if that includes my family and my friends and people at work, my mom, whomever it is, if I lose it all, I will be comfortable knowing that I am being my most authentic self. And that's what I became.
As it should be. As it should be. And I think that's like a perfect segue into the next one, which is like, do you feel like it's an unrealistic expectation put on the LGBTQIA community to like come out, or to have a come out like moment?
I think the fact that we have to come out is what's the difficult part, right? Why can't we just kind of exist? Because then it becomes, we don't just come out once, right? We come out basically everywhere we are. If you're not in a queer space, then you basically, at some point, your sexuality is going to come up. People are going to ask, because as much as people like to pretend, the heteronormative agenda is pressed everywhere.
Okay, let's talk about the straight agenda.
But so you're going into a new place where you have to come out. You're going into a new job. You're trying to make a new friend. You're trying to make a new acquaintance. And sometimes you don't have to talk about your personal relationships stuff, but being in the LGBTQ plus community, it's really hard not to be proud, I guess, of all of that. So I think what's unrealistic is thinking that you can just, I don't know. I think it's
sad to say that just exists.
Yeah.
I think the unrealistic part is most straight people, that is, the expectation doesn't exist for them. There is no expectation to come out, because the expectation is that everybody's straight. Everybody's heterosexual. Like, that's the expectation. Mm-hmm. That's the unrealistic expectation. There is no expectation on coming out necessarily, because again, everybody just assumes until something different happens or until new information is presented, everybody's straight. But like I said, if we lived in a society where acknowledging, honoring, supporting the spectrum of sexual orientation and sexuality, if we lived in a community like that, there would be no need to necessarily come out of anything, because no one would have the pressure of having to be hidden. No one would have to live with this pressure of having to be in the closet,
right?
But unfortunately, we don't live in that type of society. And even in 2021, there are still people walking around stigmatized and oppressed by the idea that I can't let my family know because of X, Y, and Z. I can't let my friends know
get kicked out
because of X, Y, and Z.
And I think
so it's an unfortunate byproduct of the type of society that we live in.
And I think especially because we are also mentioning mental health. Imagine that mental health where you as a teenager trying to come into your own, and everyone's talking about this is the time where you're trying to figure yourself out. And you're starting to figure yourself out, but now you're afraid of what you're figuring out, not because of how you feel, but because of how everyone else feels. That's why we do see such high rates of, mental health occurrences in the young LGBTQ plus people, right? Because you're fighting, it feels like the world just to be you. And I think that's the unrealistic expectation, is that we are expecting teenagers, whether they're straight or gay, to, be themselves, but only so much.
Right. Not too much. Not that part. Hide that. That's nasty. Don't do that.
It's not that nasty.
Well, that's it for the first half. We're going to take a small commercial break, and we'll be right back with the link, y'all.
Come on now.
Are you in need of a quick and easy way to know your HIV status? Swab and Chill is a discreet way to learn your status in the comfort of your own home. The process gives you results in 20 minutes. Swab the upper gums, swab the lower gums, and voila! Simply follow the colorful step-by-step instructions located inside the kit. Or call APLA and we can assist you virtually. In addition, all kits include condoms and lube for that penetrative fun. For our trans clients, we have Swab and Chill Plus, a customizable kit for trans-specific needs. And we haven't forgotten about COVID either. All kits include personal protection gear, like face masks, comfortable yet stylish. A personal touch tool for dealing with those germ-infested handles and ATM keypads. Wet wipes for those little messes that need cleaning up. Also, keep that summer body protected with Swab and Chill sunscreen. And don't forget about our fanny packs for those quick trips to the store. All this can be yours. Simply call Swab and Chill at 323-329-9713 or email us at swabandchill@apla.org. We would love for you to be part of our Swab and Chill family.
Come swab and chill with us!
We love our transition music. It's so cute.
Absolutely. Welcome back to The Link. I'm your moderator of the evening, Dwayne Savid, with Daniel J. and Kai Smith.
Hey.
We're back. Today, if you're just tuning in, we are talking about coming out and the effects it can or may have on your mental health. So, let's get into it, you guys. Do you feel like there's less anxiety around coming out now than it was 10 or 20 years ago? I mean, we definitely have more visibility now with the trans community being more visible. Billy Porter, whole shows like Pose, RuPaul's Drag Race, and things like that. So for me, I definitely feel like it's a little bit, I feel like it's always going to be a challenge, honestly, but it's a slightly more affirming to know that you have spaces and representations that you can go to talk to about it before you actually come to a family member or a guardian or whoever you decide to tell first.
I don't think that there is less anxiety around coming out. I think that if you live in a metropolitan area, you probably have more spaces that will support you if in fact your family and friends, kind of throw you away or don't want to have anything to do with you. But thinking of the person, in middle America where, there might not be, that little boy in Idaho or Minnesota where, they may not have a community to necessarily go into. I think that there will always exist a very high level of anxiety regarding coming out to your loved ones. Because it's all based on fear, based on the society that we live in, based on your experience with your family, and your loved ones. If you have a structure where gayness has never been accepted or has been talked about or joked about, you're going to grow up and get to a point where I can't tell my family that because I've witnessed how they react to certain things, So I don't think that we have less anxiety as a whole, as a group of people.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that we have more, or we're trying to expand spaces of inclusion. We definitely have more representation. We definitely have more, people in the public eye that are willing to live their truth and hold others accountable for being discriminatory. But again, that's all great if you live in a San Francisco or New York or Miami or in Atlanta or in LA. But if you're living in, you're Belinda,
what?
That might not necessarily be accessible to you.
Shoot, I mean, even if you are living in a metropolitan area, like I know, like heavily religious-based spaces, like Michigan or like Detroit specific or Illinois, Chicago, or like even Texas. Some parts of Texas is still very much so like you're going to hell, or like you're a sissy, and it's just like you still see people living their lives, living in their truths on the streets on a daily basis, and yet they still have like a large portion of the community is still holding on to that hate.
So I'm going to disagree with you all a little bit, just a little bit. I understand what you guys are saying. I do think there will always be kind of this anxiety, but I do think today it is so much easier to come out than it was when we came out. And it's not just in a personal level, because we're talking about a lot of like personal family things, but I think imagine if our parents grew up in our time, how different their thoughts would be. Because Dwayne, you gave all these really great examples that we're seeing a lot more representation of the LGBTQ community. I mean, when we talk about Gen Z, 1 in 3 Gen Zers identify as something other than heteronormative already. So the fact that we're seeing so much more representation in a younger generation, I believe that what we're seeing is there's more comfort and support. And also, people our age are having kids now. Exactly. And people our age are now starting to realize, like, you know what? Just be happy. Just be healthy. Like, we got so many other things to worry about. You being a boy or a girl or not having a gender pronoun that you don't identify with, like, that is the least of my worries. I want you to be affirmed and safe. And I think it's because us as a generation are better.
I know that's right.
But
you better tell them.
I'm better
at
talking about
in America. I mean,
and I definitely think
because globally that's not
and yes,
the case.
that is true. And I will say here as opposed to, but I think that's also we can talk about socioeconomic for countries. But I would say here, America, from as opposed to 10 to 20 years, it is so much easier. I think and then you kind of hit on this because we have more spaces, right? It's hard to come out when you have no one else to affirm you. When I came out, I had 2 other openly gay men or male identifying people at my school that I knew of. And I had a huge school. I think my graduating class was like 900 people.
Dang.
So
did you go to a high school or to a college?
It was
like Jesus.
It was a big old school. And it might not be that big, but I had a very, very large graduating class, but there were still very few of us. Now I feel like, you could walk into any school and you can, hey.
Right, like, hey.
So I feel like now there's more support, so it might feel easier. Now, I do think that this changes, though, when we talk about what race this person is, right? A white family is probably going to be a little bit more accepting for gender than maybe some hyper-religious families of the Latinx and Black communities, or even in the Asian communities. So I do think that does take into effect. But I think now I would have probably come out sooner than I did. And I would have had less fear, because I came out just before I turned 18 because I'm an adult. What can you do? But I think if I would have felt kind of what the young people, if I would have had a little Nas X when I was 13, maybe not that young, but like 14, 15, I probably would have recognized myself sooner. So that's my thought.
So what advice would you give to someone who's unsure of their sexual identity? Like, even in today, there's still some questioning, like, like maybe I want to lick a little something, maybe I want to poke a little something, but
do it all.
Just
do it all. So this is what I'll say: do it all safely, and this is like ultimately. Sexuality can change. Like even like Dwayne, like you were saying, like depends on the day you catch you. Maybe one day you're like, no, I don't want to be with someone with a vagina, and I don't know why I said it that way. And then maybe the next day I do want to be with someone with a vagina, and I think that's okay, right?
It is.
And I feel, especially with young folk, when someone comes to me, because I've had younger people ask me, like, I think I might be, and I was like, you don't have to make a choice. Like, you can say right now, yeah, you can say tomorrow, no, and that's you. You have to live with it.
Sample the buffet of life, okay?
Right? Why limit yourself?
So I think that's great when you are talking to someone who's young. But we also have to acknowledge that there are people in their 40s and their 50s and their 60s who are also just coming out, who are also just coming to terms. My advice to anybody that doesn't know, where they stand on the spectrum is you don't have to. At the end of the day, you don't have to. Whenever you start questioning it, that's the beginning of your discovery journey. That's the beginning of the time where you get to experiment, where you get to try things, where you get to say to yourself, you know what? I'm gonna try this. I don't like it. It's not for me. Or I love this. This is for me. You know, the wonderful thing about sexuality and orientation is it's yours. You get to construct what that looks like. You get to construct how that is, and you don't have to be in a box. You know, there are. I had a gentleman who saw me on social media and reached out to me with an intention to date and to court, and he had never spoken to someone with a penis before. And so we had this conversation where he had like this freak out of like, oh my God, am I gay? Am I gay? Am I gay? And I kept telling him, I said, well, why does that have to be the thing? Why are you so focused on this label, on this title? It could be you're just attracted to me. Let that be what it is. You know.
So here's a question for you, because I think oftentimes when we tell people like stuff like that, then we get the culture of, and I know this is a very small population, but I'm just going to be messy right now about people who are down low, right? What about men who say, I'm down low, I don't want people to know, but we're in a relationship now, but you got to be my friend, right? That's what happens for men in down low.
But that's a layered conversation, because we also have to talk about the fact that there are a lot of cis hetero women who have not given men the space to explore sexuality. So being DL, unfortunately, yes, we look at it from our end for people who are out and living our life. There's a negative connotation to that. But we also have to address the fact that society has not given those men the space in the room to explore. A woman can go kiss another woman. She can go eat another vagina. One time in college on a drunk night at a frat party, and then be like, you know what, that wasn't for me, and then she can live her life as a heterosexual woman. But a man at that same frat party kisses a guy, rubs his butt one good time, and he goes like, you know what, this is not for me. He gave for the rest of his life.
Which that is a great example of why we have those double standards. But we're talking about men who are only having relationships with other men, but don't want society to know they're gay. So then they are kind of keeping themselves in the closet, so to speak, just not open about their sexuality. But then what happens with the partners? What about the relationship that they kind of want to have? Because I think, and I'm not saying don't do that. I'm not telling anyone, if that's your life, that's your truth, bro. Like, good for you. You live your life. But like, what about, you know, the people who prevent other people from coming out? Because also, I don't believe we should force anyone to come out either, right?
Oh, definitely not.
Like,
well, I feel like this. First of all, can't nobody make me do any damn thing. I'm a grown ass adult. 100%. And I feel like if you're in a situation where your partner is, you know, closeted and they're not willing to come out and they're not whatever, and you're wanting certain things from that relationship, then at some point you have to take accountability for your contribution to the situation that you're in. Because at any point in time you can say, this doesn't work for me and I'm gonna leave.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like I get the point and I get the argument, but there's that situation is not solely on the person who's closeted. They're not holding you there at gunpoint.
No, and I'm not saying that at all. But it is one of those things too. You know, someone tells you, because we've all been in the relationship where we know it's toxic, we know it's trash, but we love this person, right?
Because the D is good. Like,
so, but now we've got this entire population of people who, because of their own fear, are causing other people to live away. And you know, sometimes some of the behaviors that people who live down low are really toxic just in themselves, this hyper masculinity that we can see sometimes. So how do we like tell someone at that point, like, to be comfortable with their identity, right? If they say, I'm not going to be, like, what do we say to people like that? Or how do you make people feel better, right? Because oftentimes the last thing I hate is when people out someone else. Like, don't do that. Like, that's so dangerous. If you are ever in a situation where someone tells you their sexuality, do not under any circumstance tell anyone else. It's dangerous, right? It is just a dangerous thing that can happen for some people, right?
So is the question...
But I feel like if somebody says blatantly to you that I'm not coming out, I don't want to come out, I'm never coming out, but I still want to, like, you know, have dealings and feelings and sexual healings.
Come on, feelings and dealings. Sexual healings.
With you.
That's the week episode for the link next week.
Feelings and dealings and sexual healings. Yes.
Hey, I wrote it, I trademarked it. If I hear it in a song, you owe me some coin.
It's gonna be in the song, I don't.
But then I feel like it's more to the person who they're offering that to than it is the person to be more comfortable with the relationship and eventually open to the idea of coming out. If they already told you and made their stance on where they are in their life, it's not your job to sway a person, in my opinion.
No.
So let me just for clarity, are you asking the question, what do we say to the person being asked to keep it secret, or what do we say to the person who says, I'm not coming out?
That one.
I think that you say to that person that this is not for me. Go be great in your lavender. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, you can support someone and offer someone support and offer someone resources all you want to, but you can only go as far as someone is willing to go with themselves. And if that person is just like, you know what, I'm on the DL, I don't want my family to know, I don't want my job to know, and that's just where they are. There's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you can say to that person. They're going to have to get to a space in their life and in their journey where they're willing and ready to do the work. Period. And if you want to be that kind, compassionate individual to say, hey, when you're ready to do the work, I'll be here to support you. Great. But you don't have to hold yourself hostage to a relationship with someone who's not willing to do that type of work, because nobody needs to be a secret. Like, at the end of the day, no one deserves to be a secret. And as much as they can tell you, I don't want you to be a secret, I don't want you to hide yourself, child, you start there. The minute you have to tell somebody, oh, this is my cousin or my roommate, child,
My friend.
No, sorry.
It's the emphasis on these vowels in this episode. I love it.
No. Hell no.
So here's a question for everyone. Coming out, and for people who are afraid to come out, what do you think, what would, in your opinion, I mean, obviously we are 3 out individuals, so it's easy for us to say, it's so easy to come out. It wasn't easy to come out.
Nah.
But what would you say, what would the world look like where it's safe and affirming for someone to come out? What does that look like?
Hopefully more condom distribution.
HIV education!
Because maybe I feel like there would be a lot more sexual partners, a lot of more polygamy. Am I saying it right?
Yeah. Oh, she's looking for something besides monogamy. She said sex open.
Well, polygamy.
Well, not just sex, but just
specific.
like.
So poly.
Poly.
Yes, poly. There we go. Thank you. And I was
polyamorous.
Yes, more polyamorous relationships, because I feel like people would be open to the person, not so much the gender identifier.
What about you, Daniel? What do you think?
So what would it look like is the question.
Yeah.
I think it would simply, it wouldn't look like anything. It would just be. Someone would, express what they like and how they like it, and they would receive support. How do we get there? Now, I think that's a more poignant question. And I think we get there by doing the work in ourselves, understanding that who you decide and want and love and choose to sleep with has nothing to do with me. If it's not me specifically, if you're not sleeping with me, if your interest is not with me, then who you sleep with, who you love, and how you live your life doesn't have anything to do with me. And I think having open conversations with the intent to learn, with the intent to be enlightened, with the intent to understand before being understood, is important. And I really do hope and pray that as a global society, we get to a place where, at very least, being part of the LGBTQIA community isn't something that costs you your life, that costs you your rights, or costs you the quality of living. I think that for me is just the basics. What you think of me, your opinion of it, I don't give a damn about. But allow me to live. Allow me to have the rights that any other human being should have. Allow me the ability to find my village and find my community that will support me. Don't just rob me of something that should innately be mine because I have breath in my body.
For me, I just think it would be a matter of everyone just kind of letting go of some of the old notions we have on gender and kind of what it means to be masculine or feminine. Because I also think kind of a little bit what Dwayne was saying is if we were as a world more sex positive, I think issues on sexuality wouldn't be so, or not even issues, conversations around sexuality wouldn't feel so taboo, right? Sex is sex. Everyone who is alive in this world is a product of sex and or has had sex. Everyone. You can't be alive. I mean, you could be, but those are rare instances, and we're not going to talk about the rare instances. So sex is natural. It's so natural, and we talk about sex as it's natural, but we can't say penis. We can't say vagina, right? We got to give them other names because some people are uncomfortable with the words of our natural bodies.
Tallywhacker.
Come on, Mr. Happiness Friends. But
Okay.
it is, and I think that's a really, really kind of big thing. And I also think we need to get away from imposing religion on other people's bodies and their lifestyles. So yeah, that's just my thought on that. But I do think too, if we as a world were kind of as open as the young folk were, as like Generation Alpha, which are like the little kids right now, they're gonna be so interesting. I can't wait to see them.
They're going to be dope. I just love to see it, but I also know that like in my like millennial mindset, I'm still gonna be like, I feel like I'm gonna be like the older generation, but more accepting. Like I don't get it, but
Do you, girl?
Right, let your freak flag fly.
That's ultimately just like, I can barely keep up with my own life. I don't care who you're
right, exactly. Like, okay, great. But I think we're running out of time. We're 2 minutes left, and I just want a quick response to this last question. Do you guys have any words of affirmation or encouragement for those who have like paralyzing fear or anxiety and might not ever want to come out? Like what would you say to them? Like how would you affirm them, or what is some encouraging words that you would give to them?
You want to go first? You want to go first? I would say obviously it's your choice. It's your life. Live the best life for you. Make the smartest choices and the safest choices. I would encourage them, there's a sense of freedom in being able to openly live your truth. But no one's making you do that. I enjoyed being a gay man. I know there have been instances where I have felt unsafe because of my sexuality, but I've also experienced some really, really beautiful things because I don't know if anyone else out there knows, straight people are so boring. And
because they put restrictions on themselves.
And I feel like there's a freedom in the LGBTQ idea because we have this openness. And wouldn't you love just to feel the people you're around are so exciting?
Right.
Yeah. But that's me. But you don't have to. But I encourage it, but you don't have to.
My encouragement would be this. Continue to discover yourself. Find your freedoms where you can find your freedoms. Protect your peace. Protect your life if you're in a position where coming out would cost you that. Mm-hmm. And we live in a virtual world. So there's always a space somewhere where you can build a support system and build a community until you are able to move yourself or your situation physically into a space where you have more support and more resources. But discover who you are first. Go through that journey. There will come freedoms for you in that discovery. And you just build upon those freedoms until you're at a point in your life where you can be 100% free who you are without fear of consequence. So
make alt Twitter. Start there.
Dwayne, what's your encouragement?
All right. Look, I'm gonna try to look into the camera, y'all. As Daniel said earlier, it is your life. You make the rules. If you do not want to come out, that is fine. If you do, that is also fine. But at the end of the day, like nobody is really judging you as harshly as you are judging yourself. Mm-hmm. Nobody is making the rules for you as much as you are really making those rules for yourself. Because at the end of the day, they don't pay your bills. And in the words of the Puerto Rican princess, and you're still the baddest bee.
Well, that's all that we have for you for this show of the Link. Make sure that you tune in next week for the Link Next, where I will be there, Carlos Roger, as well as Nigel. We will be talking about Hispanic Heritage Month, bringing you some historic facts about iconic Latin and Hispanic figures throughout history and in current day.
I hope
So-
Selena's in there.
We'll be here same day, same time, Tuesday, 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But until next time, we are the hosts of The Link, and you guys have a fabulous day.
Come out if you haven't. Come out to everyone. And if you
Or
want a safe
don't.
space, we're here. Or don't.
No.